Alright, KOTLC AM audiobook peeps. We're back. Sorry, it's been so inconsistent lately. But I'm recording tonight, and this is going to come out tomorrow the 16th. The question for today comes from a fan who asked me, what's your favorite relationship or ship besides either Keefe and Sophie or Fitz and Sophie, not involving Sophie? Let me know, because I had to think about it for a second. I said Dex and Biana. And, yeah. Welcome back for Keeper of the Lost Cities Lodestar, chapters 45 and 46. Boys, Sophie repeated, trying to come up with any other meaning for the word besides the one Grady's raised eyebrows implied. Yeah, it's always awkward to talk about this stuff with your parents, he told her. But remember, I went through this with Jolie. I know it's not easy to deal with feelings. He means crushes, Sandor clarified, just to add the final nail to her coffin of misery. Ugh. Seriously, why are we talking about this? Sophie asked, wondering if she could slip past Sandor if she sprinted to the door. Sandor and Grady shared a look. We're talking about it because you asked why I'm harder on on Keefe, Grady said. He seems special to you, Sandor added. And he also happens to be a very good-looking boy for an elf. This is the worst thing ever, Sophie shouted, flopping back on her bed and pulling her hair over her face to hide. I'm right there with you, kiddo. If I had it my way, you'd be getting your match lists when you were 100. But even if I got my wish on that, I also know that feelings happen. Well, they're not happening here. He's my friend. That's often how it starts, Sandor said, and then the friendship turns to teasing, and the teasing turns to flirting, and, yeah, but this is Keefe, Sophie interrupted. In case you haven't noticed, he teases everyone. It doesn't mean anything, especially with me. You really believe that, don't you? Grady asked, glancing at Sandor when she nodded. If you guys keep looking at each other like that again, I'm going to punch you, Sophie warned, and I'm still wearing my sucker punch. Look at each other like what? Sandor asked. Like, isn't she cute? You are cute. Grady took both of her hands and pulled her back to the sitting position. And you're sure there's nothing you want to tell me? I promise I won't freak out. Kinda sounds like you would. Not that it matters. But aren't you basically telling me you don't approve of Keefe? Isn't that why I'm grounded? You're grounded because you nearly gave me a panic meltdown, Grady told her. And it's not about approval. This is your life. You'll get to choose who you share it with. But I will say this. Anyone who wants to be special to you should have to prove they deserve you. Not just Keefe, though he'll definitely have a more uphill battle. I'll be saying the same thing if we're talking about anyone else. Like, I don't know, Dex or Fitz. Sophie buried her face in her hands. Someone please kill me now. Uh-oh, this doesn't sound good, Adeline said as she crossed the bedroom to join them. Do I want to know what you guys are talking about? Boys, Sandor and Grady said at the same time. That's what I was afraid of. Adeline sat on Sophie's other side and patted her knee. If it helps, we drove Jolie just as crazy. You should ask for Tina to share some of the horror stories. There's nothing wrong with making sure Sophie knows that we have high expectations for anyone she chooses, Grady said. Another thing to keep in mind, kiddo, whenever you start to narrow it down, I will be having a long conversation with him. Please tell me he's joking, Sophie whined to Adeline. Don't worry, we'll come up with a plan of attack before your first winnowing gala, Adeline promised. I have a feeling I'm really going to regret this question, Sophie mumbled. But what's a winnowing gala? Adeline smiled. Whenever you pick up a new match list, it's customary to hold a party and invite everyone on the list to come, so you can start narrowing down who you might actually be interested in. We never held one for Jolie, because her mind was already made up. But if you're less decided, the gala could be a fun way to start things out. I know all of this probably feels huge and embarrassing, and I promise we don't have to talk about it anymore for now. But I do want to make sure that you know Grady and I will support whoever you choose. She glared at Grady until he agreed. Okay, now. We can change the subject to something that won't make you want to tug out all of your eyelashes, Adeline said, handing Sophie a thin, curled-up scroll. This is your schedule for the council's new skill training program. Looks like you're part of the Wednesday morning group, so you'll get a break from your grounding at least once a week. And my sister told me that Magnate Leto made sure all of your friends are in the same group. What group are you guys in? Sophie asked. None for the moment. Our house arrest continues. She kissed Sophie's cheek before she stood and straightened the fabric of her simple blue and white gown. Are you heading out? Grady asked. Adeline nodded. The gnomes told me they'd have dinner waiting for you in the kitchen, since I'll probably be home late. Wait, you're leaving? Sophie asked. I thought you just said you're on house arrest. I am, but I'm sneaking out to a Louveterre, where there's plenty of security to protect me. Julian made arrangements. She didn't want to at first, but she's feeling very guilty for all the things she's hidden from me over the past few years. As she should, Grady grumbled. Adeline took his hand. We both know we spent the majority of the time misunderstanding the Black Swan and their role in what happened to our daughter. Grady had once believed that the Black Swan killed Jolie to punish him for resisting their efforts to recruit him. Why are you going to Louveterre? Sophie asked. I need to visit Wiley. I owe it to Syra to try and help her son. I owed her that years ago and wasn't strong enough to fulfill it. But I'm hoping it's better late than never. If there's anything I can do, Sophie said, I promise I'll let you know. She kissed Sophie's cheek before she left with Grady, and the two of them headed upstairs to the Leap Master. And where do you think you're going? Sandor asked as Sophie made her way across the room. She pointed to her bathroom. Am I supposed to stay in my pajamas forever? I suppose not. I'll give you privacy to use the bathroom to get changed. But otherwise, consider us joined at the hip. Well, Sophie said, flashing her most mocking smile, at least that means I'll get to be there for the dancing. Sandor grumbled under his breath as she swung her hips like Grizzle. I think she likes you, she called through the door, after she'd closed it in his face. She'd expected Sandor to deny it, but he let out a squeaky sigh. Grizzle has gone to dramatic lengths to make that abundantly clear. She and I grew up together, and everyone assumed we'd someday settle. I'm fairly certain I'm the reason Grizzle joined the Elven regiments, even though she'd been offered a position in our Queen's Royal Guard. The idea of a goblin queen was almost enough to distract Sophie, but not quite. She finished changing and left the bathroom. So, I take it that means you're not interested? Interest has nothing to do with it. Does that mean you are? Because I actually think you two would be super cute together. I can assure you we wouldn't be, Sandor said, shadowing her as she retrieved her memory log from her desk and headed to her bed. And I love how you're suddenly the expert on all things romantic. Moments ago you proved yourself to be exceptionally clueless. I'm not clueless. I'm realistic. As am I. The reality is that I have no time for a companion, nor do I have need of one. I'm far better suited as a warrior than a husband. I've told Grizzle as much, several times, and that is the end of the discussion of my love life. I can't believe you have a love life, Sophie admitted. Talk about mind blow. And why is that? Sandor huffed. I'll have you know that among my species I am quite the specimen. Sophie giggled. Man, I wish Keefe could be here to hear you say that. Interesting that he was the first boy you thought of. Only because he'd call you Specimen Sandor. I'll be sure to tell him during our next check-in. I'm sure you will, Sandor said. And on that note, I'll leave you to record your memories. But I'm right outside, should you have the slightest notion of leaving. He marched to his usual post, and Sophie slipped under the blankets and opened her memory log. Alden had given her the familiar teal book with the silver moonlark on the cover after she'd discovered that the Black Swan had hidden secrets in her brain, so she'd have a way to keep track of any that triggered. And as she flipped through the pages, it was crazy to see how long it had been since she'd recorded any of those kinds of discoveries. For months, everything she projected were clues in the secrets she'd found on her own. She closed her eyes and slowly projected everything Keefe had shown her, zooming in on the details that seemed most important, like Lady Gisella's hairpin. The silver-white stone was smooth and oval, but when the light hit it, thin veins of blue shot through an asterisk pattern. "Dinner time," Grady said, making her jump as he crossed her room, carrying a tray with a bottle of lushberry juice and a bowl of what looked like pink spaghetti. "Already?" Sophie glanced out of her windows, and sure enough, the sun was setting. "Oh, I almost forgot my check-in with Keefe. These are going to be hard to remember." "I think I'll stay right here, in case you learn anything important from him," Grady told her, plopping down next to her on the bed and setting the tray in her lap. Sophie was positive his real motive involved a whole lot of spying, but she closed her eyes and pretended that he wasn't there as she stretched out her mind. "Really bad time right now," Keefe told her. "You're okay though, right?" "Yeah, I just need to pay attention." She could feel his mind trying to close down and concentrate, so she didn't ask any more questions. But a sour taste coated her tongue. "He can't talk right now," she told Grady as she pushed the tray of food away. "If he was in danger, I'm sure he would have told you," Grady said, nudging the dinner back into her lap. "At least try a few bites. Flora told me it's a rare fruit called threadlines, and she grew them specifically for you." "When did you guys start talking?" Sophie stirred her dinner, hoping Grady wouldn't notice that she didn't answer. "Did you know she's Calla's niece?" Grady nodded. "I swear the pancake sprouts twice as many blossoms every time Flora sings." Sophie smiled as she pictured that, and took a small bite of the pink strings. And while it definitely wasn't as delicious as dark flower stew, it tasted spicy and tangy and made her want to keep eating. Grady scooped up her memory log as she took the forkful. "Is this the pin Keefe's mom cut him with?" "Yeah. Any idea where Lady Gisela could have bought it?" "Not really. Lots of places make hairpins with starstones, though I'm pretty sure the stones usually flash with green veins." She told Keefe it was rare. "Well, I'll ask some of the jewelers I know in Atlantis, but I'm betting whoever made it won't admit it. See how there aren't any etchings on the metal? Most artists leave a craftsman's mark, like a signal." He flipped to the next page, which showed a wide view of the door, the cold metal surrounded by snow and shadows. "The star only rises at nightfall," he mumbled, pointing to the runes carved into the doorframe. "That's what these say." Sophie repeated the phrase. "Do you think it's a riddle?" "Riddles usually lead to a what am I? But I'm sure the word star isn't a coincidence." "Could it be a quote from something then? Like how the black swan used to follow the pretty bird across the sky from an old dwarven poem?" "If it is, I've never heard of it before. But I'm definitely not an expert on those kinds of things. Maybe the collective can show it to the dwarfs to see if it sounds familiar." Sophie hoped they would, though she was pretty sure she could at least guess part of the meaning. Whatever Lady Gisela had built, whatever she'd locked away with Keefe's blood, it was going to make the world a much darker place. Chapter 46. "Please tell me you've learned something we can use," Sophie transmitted as soon as the first rays of dawn sliced through her bedroom. "Well, good morning to you, too," Keefe thought. "Is this how these extra check-ins are going to be going? No hello, no I miss you, no I can't stop thinking about you, and don't even try and deny the last one." Sadly, she couldn't, but not for the reason he was teasing. He'd told her during their final check-in the night before that he'd heard Finton get an urgent hail on his imparter and use the word escaped during the conversation. But when she'd asked if that meant they were planning something for Wiley, Keefe had to go because Alvar and Rye were fighting. "You're so cute when you worry," he told her. Sophie gritted her teeth. "Be very glad I haven't figured out a way to mentally smack you. It's on my list of goals." "Fine. Forgive me for trying to have a little fun after yesterday's drama." I guess Finton's blaming Rye and Brant for Wiley's escape, since Brant burned one of Wiley's bonds, and Rye was the one who was supposed to clear out all of Wiley's pockets. Brant doesn't seem to care, but Rye's flipping out because Fenton's threatening to change their role in some sort of big project coming up. And no, I don't have any information on the project. So, Rye spent most of last night trying to convince Alvar to say that all 4 of them would share the blame for what happened. And Alvar won't. No honor among criminals, huh? Nope. Alvar's all about watching his own back. So, Rye left to try to talk Trick's number into it. I'm assuming that means I was right and Umber was the 4th kidnapper. Did you ever tell me what her ability is? I probably forgot. She's a shade. A freakishly powerful one. She puts Bang's boy to shame. And she doesn't have stupid hair. I thought she was always hiding under her cloak. She is. But as the crowned king of good-looking hairland, I can tell you when I'm talking to one of my rightful subjects. That might be the most ridiculous thing you've ever said. Doesn't mean it's not true. How else would I know that you have an adorable case of bedhead right now? I do not! But when she patted her hair, she was pretty sure the whole pineapple head situation was back. She burrowed deeper under her covers. Did you learn anything else? Just that it's a bad time to be asking questions. But after everyone went to sleep, I tore open the seam of my cloak and found another one of the black discs right where you said it would be. Did it have a different piece of the symbol on it? Nope, the same marking. And I snuck out of bed and checked all the doors to see if I could figure out what the disc does, but so far no luck. So basically, we lost a whole day and learned nothing. Whoa, when did you become Little Miss Negativity? I'm just sick of all these vague bits of information. You're sleeping under the same roof as the enemy, and we still have no idea what they're planning. I know. I'm working on it. We just have to be... If you say patient, I'm going to end this conversation. Yeah, I sound like the Forkle leader. And don't go into shock, but I think I'm starting to understand what he means. Look at what happened to Wiley. The Neverseen made their move, and they botched it. And now the Black Swan will make sure they never get another shot at it. Isn't that good? For us? Yeah. But not for the Neverseen. That's the thing. If Fenton gets too suspicious of me, it'll ruin my chance, and that'll be it. So I have to make sure I wait until the time is right. Whoa. Who are you and what have you done with Keefe Sensen? Is all this wisdom killing my cool cred? A little. But wise Keefe has a way better shot of getting out of this alive. Oh, I'm getting out of this. Unless the food here kills me. These kernel fruits we just harvested taste like banshee droppings. Next time I fake join an evil organization, remind me to choose one that hasn't angered the gnomes, okay? She could see the shriveled up green fruit in his mind, and it looked like a cross between a pomegranate and an ear of corn, which wouldn't have been that bad if the grains of fruit hadn't been coated in a black powder that looked way too much like mold. How about you go get something good from the kitchen and describe it as you eat it? He asked. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Aw, come on, Foster, I'm starving here. He spent the rest of their conversation recounting the horrible things he'd had to eat over the last few weeks. The whining resumed that night during their dinner time check-in. Though Sophie couldn't blame him. Keefe's meal consisted of slimy, withered leaves that tasted like sneeze. I'll keep snacks in my pocket, she promised. That way if we meet up again I can share. As if I needed another reason to wish you were here. Shouldn't you be wishing you were here? Where the food is good and there aren't any crazy murderers running around? That does sound nice. But the crazy murderers are useful. I learned something from Fenton today. Not what I was hoping to find out, but it's still important. He started venting about Brant and Rye and how frustrating it is to work with people who disappoint him again and again. And then he said he's counting on me to live up to my potential. Potential for what? He didn't say. But I took a chance and asked if he wanted me to do the empath lie detector thing when he meets with King Dimitar. I told him I was worried the ogres were going to double-cross us. And he seemed impressed that I was thinking about things like that. He said it's good to see that I care so strongly about his vision, and of course, he didn't say what his vision was. But he draped his arm around my shoulders. Oh! Yeah, I wanted to shove him away, trust me. But I held still and listened while he told me he's worried about the ogres too. And then he said that he gave King Dimitar an assignment to prove they could work together, kind of like a test. Sophie sat up straighter. That's perfect! We need to find out what the test is and make sure the ogres fail. Working on it, Keefe promised. But I'm assuming whatever the ogres are up to is going to involve someone getting hurt. So no ditching Gigantor. Okay? Like I could. Did I mention you got me grounded? I've been stuck in my room all day with nothing to do except for stare at my memory log. And Sandor is standing right next to me right now, telling me that he wants to know what you're saying. Aw, give him a kiss for me. And I'm not saying that to be a brat. I'm seriously glad he's there to protect you. Everyone else has a bodyguard, right? Fitz, Biana, Dex, Grady, Headline, Alden, Della. Everyone except Alden and Della. But they rarely leave their house, so they're safe. I don't know. The gates at Everglen are designed to block people from light leaping in, but that won't stop ogres from popping up out of the ground. She closed her eyes, trying to squeeze out the nightmare scene Keefe had just painted. I'll ask the collective to send some additional guards for the Vackers. Maybe dwarves, so the Neverseen won't notice any changes if they're watching. I swear at this rate, our group has more security than the council. Seems unfair, doesn't it? What do you mean? I don't know. It's just, we spent hours prepping Havenfield to keep my family safe. And while we were doing it, the Neverseen snatched Wiley out of his room and tortured him. I'm so sorry I messed that up. I'd heard them talk so much about your family that when Finton said we were ready to shift to the next phase, I thought, the next phase of what? Sophie interrupted. The Lodestar initiative. Wait, whatever they're planning to do to my family is part of the Lodestar initiative? I thought the Neverseen only wanted to take them so they could control me. That's probably part of it, but it's starting to feel like they're doing some sort of gathering. It's almost like Fenton has this list of people and information he needs, and he's checking them off one by one. Sophie's mind flashed to the cell Dex had been held in at the Paris hideout. Was that what the room had been meant for? You okay over there? Keefe asked. You've gone quiet on me. I'm just trying to think. Is Wiley's kidnapping, and maybe his mom's death, also part of the Lodestar initiative? That's what I'm assuming. He made it sound so obvious, and maybe it was, but Sophie hadn't considered the connection. Her brain throbbed under the weight of 1,000 new questions. How's Wiley doing, by the way? Keefe asked. About the same. Adeline saw him yesterday and said his wounds looked healed, but his thoughts were so dark, and they're going to keep him sedated for at least another day. So they don't want to erase his memories? Wiley told us not to. He wants to make sure we don't get rid of anything that could help us find out what happened to his mom. That's very brave. Keefe's mind flashed to his 9-year-old self, curled up in a ball under the covers as he waited for the washer to come erase his memories. You can't compare the two, Sophie told him. He didn't agree, but Keefe stuffed the memory away, his mind practically forcing a smile as he told her, Finton's supposed to come to this hideout tonight for a strategy meeting, so it's probably not a good idea to do another check-in until tomorrow morning, and be prepared for some breakfast whining. We harvested something called yolk snips today, and they smelled exactly like Iggy farts. Apparently they tasted like it too, but Keefe barely mentioned them when Sophie connected to his mind at the daybreak. He was too excited to share his news. He still hadn't learned anything about the test for the ogres, or Wiley, or the plan for Grady and Adeline, or Brandon Rice punishment, or Finton's cash, or any of the other things that had kept Sophie up most of the night. But, Keefe said, his mental voice so loud it echoed around her head, I've finally been granted clearance to move into one of their hideouts. You're now talking to a fully initiated member of the Neverseen. What an ending. What an ending. That concludes chapters 45 and 46. Come back tomorrow for 47 and 48. Thank you so much for listening. Bye!